All right, we're recording.
I'd like to go ahead and open up to Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. Welcome to the new year, Warrenton Board of Aldermen. If you would, please rise, say the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next will be the introduction of new employees.
We have Tyler Reese and Kenneth Ratliff, both began with Public Works Department. Tyler began on December 19th and Kenneth on December 20th.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, guys.
Thanks. Welcome. Looking forward.
Next will be consent agenda.
We have the regular meeting minutes from December 20th, 2022, and the fire extinguisher bid was awarded to Cintas, and they were the only bid.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Quarter, seconded by Alderman Jaspering. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Crump,
Yes.
Alderman Quarter,
Yes.
Alderman Cullum,
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next will be public comments. Anyone who would like to come forward and say anything to us, please step to the podium, state your name, we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not to anybody, we'll go ahead and move on to the Board of Alderman comments. There's no one in the crowd except for Adam, and then Adam usually just says it in the paper.
I like to just say Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes. Happy New Year. Good to be back.
Next, we'll be hearing from City Administrator Brandy Walters.
Good evening. The first thing that I have for you tonight is the sales tax for recreational marijuana. This was tabled at a previous meeting, and I wanted to bring that back up to you because I had sent you out some information as well as a sample ordinance that our attorney had drawn up. And if this is something that you are interested in, it would be a 3% tax on the recreational marijuana that was just passed recently. That could go into our general fund, which could offset some of the costs as far as all the other departments except for water, sewer, and streets. Those don't come out of general funds. If that tax was implemented, it does have to go to the voters for a voter approval. And if you guys are interested in that, we can bring the actual ordinance to you at the next board meeting. It would have to be, in order for us to take it to the voters, it has to be approved at the next meeting so that we can get it on the ballot. It would not cost anything to the city for it to go to the voters because it is an election, so it wouldn't cost anything for us to take it and put it on the ballot.
Let's do it. What's the majority? I mean, I know there's probably a couple people that oppose it. We talked about that before, correct?
Correct. This is a 3% increase on top of the current, right?
Yes, it would be
Yeah.
3% additional on recreational only.
Yeah.
So you just wanted to see if the majority of the board is...
Yeah, if you guys want me to bring an ordinance to you at the next meeting or not.
Alderman Cullum?
I'm against taxes.
Jaspering?
Me too. Me too.
Yes. I'm not
No.
against it.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Schultz?
I'm for it.
Crump?
I'm for it.
4-2. Go ahead and bring it.
We'll bring that to the next board meeting. The next thing that I wanted to just discuss, this is kind of just a discussion, just to let you know that this is coming up, is the 2023 bond. We have been talking about this over and over about the increase to the treatment plant. I've been in discussions with the engineers, the financial advisor, the bond counsel, all of those folks. The engineers believe that the current rough estimate is a little over $20 million for the complete project of doubling the capacity. They do believe this could be divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 would be pretty much start immediately in we would go to bonds if it passes by voter approval, then the first phase would be done in 2024. The second phase, we could actually we could pair that at the same time. We could do it a little bit later. That's not going to increase capacity. It's just going to increase the way that the way they do sludge and stuff out there, the way that the employees actually maintenance of the plant. And then, but it does have to be done before phase 3. Phase 3 would be the final. He doesn't think if we keep growth at where we're at right now, The engineers believe that we could be about 9 to 10 years out for doing that third phase. Of course, if we have a huge increase, it would have to come sooner than that, but the first phase is pretty much what we really need in the next 3 to 5 years.
So, let me ask just a quick question, because I think this is on everybody's mind that's up here. With the way the inflation's been going and the way the increase has been happening, I get a lock-in right now, but I'm really getting tired of people always coming to us telling that, well, there's been an adjustment of $350,000 we're gonna have to come up with.
Right. And we've kind of actually talked about that a little bit, is if one of the other projects that they foresee is the water pressure on the south side of town, that when they redid that well, it wasn't where we actually expected it to be. So that's another thing that we see actually in the near future, 3 to 5 years out. So what our thoughts is if we did enough for voter, it'd be a no tax increase for the voters, for a bond for the first phase of the wastewater treatment plants, for that storage tank for the extra water, and then there would be enough in there to do phase 2, but if we have an increase, if it ends up being way higher with the inflation, then we could bump back and not do that phase 2 yet, and maybe do that later, and go to voters for another bond approval 7 or 8 years down the road for that third phase and the second phase.
So is there a way, and maybe legal can answer that, we were kind of talking up here, is there a way to get that locked in? I don't know how you do that legally, but to say, hey, this is what you quoted us. It's a however many year project. If inflation happens,
Unfortunately, we cannot, because it's all done by the engineer right now, so it's all an estimate. We haven't gone out to bid. We wouldn't do that until we had financing in place.
I meant when it comes to that part.
Yeah,
can
when
we
it came
then
into that
say,
part,
hey,
Man, I don't know. The way things are going right now, it's hard for them to estimate that, you know? We can absolutely try anything.
So then why can't we just get a bond for the whole thing and just start on this whole project now and say we have it done in 5 years?
We can, absolutely. We would be going to the voters for a $20 million bond versus 13. So I don't know if that would shy people away from voting for that. That would be my only concern with going that high. And you're still going in phases. You're not going to be able to do it all at one time. You're still going to have to, do it over time. So you're still not going to be able to lock in that price, because not everything can be done at the same time.
Correct, but I guess what I'm asking then is, if we're looking at phase 3 at 10 years down the road,
That's not gonna be the right amount.
why can't we start phase 3 as soon as we're done with phase 2?
We absolutely can. If that's what you want to do, we could go for voter approval and, like I said, do the full $20 million. But I think you're still you're still gambling with that, hoping that it's still $20 million when you get to that phase 3 point.
Right.
You're still hoping that that's still going to be the total
Yeah, but I
cost.
guess I'd be closer at the 20 million at 4 or 5 years down the road than I would be at 10 years down the
10 to
road.
15.
Right.
That's 13 years, yeah.
You know? I guess that's how I was kind of looking at the math. And-
Sure.
so if we did like what Alderman Crump was saying, if we went out for the full 20 million bonds and the voters said no, then we'd have to put it on the next ballot for a smaller number.
So I think what we have talked about, and Dana, speak in here if I'm incorrect, if the bond does not pass, we can look at other financing, other financial capabilities, other financing, other than bonds. Was it lease, I believe?
As opposed to
I'm
general
sorry, I don't
obligation,
know
we
all
could
of
go to
that.
leasehold bonds. There's other long-term debt options available to us. And again, you're absolutely right. Perhaps the public would be interested in a different dollar amount than first presented. But timing would be an issue at some point.
Sure. And I think a lot of people unfortunately don't get to see the meetings or don't come here, unfortunately, but so they don't understand how a lot of that works. But correct me if I'm wrong, so a no tax bond doesn't cost the public anything, correct?
Correct.
It's the city basically going out for a bond, and then we're committing to repay it on a certain term.
And do you have something else you want to input on that? Sir?
I just remind everyone that utility-related bonds then are paid out of the utility user fees. So while it wouldn't be an increase in taxes, you may have some impact on rates to cover the debt issuance.
Pay it back quicker, you mean?
The taxes.
We'd have to raise the water rates to cover the bond.
And isn't that what we're doing to pay off our other bonds, is increasing the water tax?
Last year,
Yes. Well, we're doing that every year, correct?
We have
For X amount of years. Where,
do we ever get that study back? Sorry. Weren't we getting a study on the rates?
We did, but it is very, very rough numbers. We don't have the exact of where we would be right now if we did no financing. We don't have that number. But I have an approximate for if we did go out for bonds. If we went out for the 13 million, you're looking at approximately a 5% increase. And the 20 million is approximately a 9%. And like I said, this is very rough, but I don't know exactly where our numbers, where our numbers should be right at this moment. I don't know if we're in the realm of where we should be or if we should be increasing.
Do we have that by 2 more weeks, by next meeting?
You know, and the other thing to consider, Brandy, is part of our, I see two sides to the question. So the first being, how much do we go to the voters asking for voter approval? Do we go asking for 13 million or do we go asking for 20 million? It doesn't mean that we have to issue the debt right away for the full amount. Sure. Even though the voter has approved us to spend this over time, and that can be many, many years, we could decide, you know what, based on our current user rates and where we want to be and what we're comfortable with, we're only going to do, like you say, the first couple phases of the work. And then a few years later, we could come back and go, and maybe even 10 years later, and go, you know what, we're ready now to do the next phase. So you have some options there.
well, and we're not sure how long it'll take if we start in '24 on phase 1. We're not sure how long that'll take to build that or be complete with that, is it? Is there I see it says 7, it'll take us out 7 years, but that's just usage. It'll take us out 7 years, but it'll take 2 or 3 years to build this phase 1?
Actually, I think I have that. I believe he said that it would be construction in 2024, so it should be completed late 2024, early 2025, because he said phase 2 we could do in 2025.
Okay, so it's about a 12-month,
probably
12 to
about a year
18 month
process. Yeah, that first
okay.
phase.
So if we don't get the bond, can we afford to finance it?
We would still do the same piece. It would still be through user fees.
It would be at a higher percentage rate, is what you're saying, roughly,
Right.
right now. So you're talking about 4% higher without the
Or
financing.
approximately 9% you mentioned a while ago. Is that,
That's if we finance the full 20 million.
but that would be an increase of 9% to the public?
Right.
Time or all at once?
That's if, like she had said, we went out for the full 20 million.
Yeah.
That would be over
But
time.
what would be the reason for doing that? Going up for the full 20 million?
I
So the
don't,
9% would come in if we not only went to voter approval of 20 million, but issued the debt immediately for 20 million in total and started on every phase of this project.
Which we would never do. We would have already had the voters approve the 20 million, but we would draw down and start the debt load once on each one of those phases.
Correct.
Basically is what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and hopefully by then we'd have the growth.
To help.
Hopefully we wouldn't have to
Correct.
raise it that much if we have a lot of new people move in.
That's an
to
excellent
offset
point,
that.
too.
And the
Yes.
question is, do we want to go to the voter for 20 million or a 13 and a 7? Is that that's what I'm hearing, is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah. What do you guys recommend?
I personally would recommend the 13 million. And the only reason I say that is because you're still talking about an inflation. You're not going to get this completed in the next 5 years. So what if it's a tremendous amount and you've got a bond for, you've only got approval for 20 million?
It could be 27
could end up
million
being-
total by the
exactly.
time we're done. So you're
So now you're having to go
Suggestion.
back
Either way, it
out.
would be
You're gonna have to do.
27 million, right?
Yeah, we won't go
Because if
back.
they're gonna come back and say this costs 2 million more, we're still gonna have to pay 2
Yeah, but
million
we've
more, right?
already got a vote for only 20 million, so we're going to go back again for another
You have to go
7.
back for
Oh.
approval again.
Yeah.
Anything that's above that.
I say we just do the 13.
Yeah,
I think you're right, Scott. I think,
I
I'm
think,
okay with the 13.
yeah, I think that was.
Sounds like 13's gonna win it.
So then we'll bring you the ordinance at the next meeting so that we can get that on the, also on the April ballot. The only other thing that I have for you is just a reminder that we're going to have a work session at the next board meeting, January 17th at 5 PM.
and what?
At 5 PM.
Fine.
It'll be before the next board meeting.
Call it what you want.
So before I move on to the next thing, gentlemen, I appreciate it. You don't have to stay the whole meeting. I didn't know if anybody had told you guys that or not, so I didn't want you guys staying through it. Sometimes it's not all that great, so,
It's initiation. They have to stay.
Initiation.
You do, you get brownie points.
sorry.
Or you can raise your hand and ask a question.
Sure. Next, we'll be hearing from Finance Officer Dana Belaska.
So you have a list of claims before you for your approval this evening. Claims totaling $129,401.34. Any questions related to that list?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $129,401.34.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Crump. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Crump?
Yes.
Alderman Corder?
Yes.
Alderman Cullum?
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering? Yes. Alderman Miller?
Yeah.
Motion passes 6-0.
The next item before you are the November financials. So 5 months into this year, you'll see that general fund revenue is about $200,000 above budget. Factors there are about $48,000 of sales tax revenue. It's about 4% higher than budgeted. We also have motor fuel tax. It's in the other category, $22,000 above budget. Court's running a little bit above budget. Again, we were very conservative on our court income budget for this year, so $19,000 above budget. Permitting, $16,000 above budget, and franchise tax, $42,000 above budget. In the general fund, you also see that expenses are $238,000 below budget. So about $146,000 of that related to vacancies. In the transportation fund, revenue is about $75,000 above budget. We still have that MoDOT reimbursement on the sidewalk that's kind of thrown us a little out of whack since we anticipated it last year. Then in the expense for the transportation fund, $49,000 below budget, again related to vacancies. Water and sewer fund, revenues are $120,000 above budget. $73,000 of that related to industrial sewer, so the Refresco plant primarily. And then connections, water sewer connections are about $50,000 below budget, so it kind of goes in line with new construction there. Operating expenses for the water and sewer fund, $47,000 above budget. Really just looks like a timing issue on the transfers. They happened a little sooner than anticipated. So, are there any questions on those November financials?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's all I have then.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, I'll entertain a motion to go into, close the regular Board of Alderman meeting and go into executive session for real estate.
So moved.
Second.
Who wants the second? Schultz. Motion made by Alderman Crump, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Crump?
Yes.
Alderman Corder?
Yes.
Alderman Cullum?
Yes.
Alderman Jaspering?
Yes.
Alderman Miller,
Wow.
sorry. And Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. We are so adjourned, and we'll be going in